You have your state, Kaduna State, is likened to an administrative state for northern Nigeria, and by extension gives it that much of responsibility to be able to live up to the expectations in that regard. But you also have quite a number of mineral deposits in your state.
Yeah.
How are you able to harness excuse me, how are you able to harness and bring that to the front burner when you're talking about investments? How can, say for instance, a company X comes in to CAD 2.0 and wants to invest in the solid minerals sector and develop cement, for instance?
So that's very interesting, because hitherto now, Kaduna has been tagged as quote-unquote the civil service state. But this is a state of 8.5 million people. Our total number of civil servants is below 80,000. So it is impossible for 80,000 people to determine the coloration of an 8.5 million people state. What we are trying to do very consciously is to diversify this image and diversify this toga that we have now to become more of a business state. And people have responded. Kaduna has probably around the country the largest number of educational institutions around the country. So it means that by default, we have a huge amount of educated people. 80% of our population is under the age of 35, which is a very youthful population that businesses can use to grow and to thrive. If you take mining, for example, one of the things that we did was to commission what is called a JOC report. Now, a JOC report provides the baseline for everything that you require as an investor to know what is beneath the ground. Out of these reports, for example, we found that Kaduna had one of the finest nickel in the world, in Ngoma, one of the villages in Kaduna State. And we have Australian investors right now that are looking at this investment. They are already on site working to extract and then work with us on an agreement together with the federal government. We have gold licenses already that we've worked on with Solid Minerals. We have a Kaduna mining company that we've set up. So there are significant things. One of the things that the governor is launching today is that JOC report. And we want to make it public so that all the investors in the mining space can know exactly what is beneath the ground in Kaduna. And this is the subsidization of their own costs, because they don't have to do this anymore. They already know how to key into these investments.
I'm sorry. How easy? Because we've always talked about the ease of doing business in the country, and I'd imagine that you would have taken steps to shorten the process. What have you done in that regard?
Well, we've done a lot. If you remember last year, during the CADIDVEST, the first edition, at the end of the summit, what the governor launched was an ease of doing business committee, which was chaired by His Excellency the Deputy Governor, and brought into play all the ministries, departments and agencies and the private sector that are working on investments in the state. That team has worked every single week. We meet every Tuesday at 4 o'clock at the Deputy Governor's office. And we've worked to streamline the processes, to simplify all the processes that it takes from registration of a business to enforcing contracts in Kaduna State. Because of this, just last month, Business Day awarded Kaduna as the easiest state to do business in Nigeria. Now, this is a far cry from where we're coming from in 2014, when the World Bank ranked Kaduna as the worst place to do business in northern Nigeria. So you can see the jump. And these are things that we're documenting and we're launching today. Today, we're launching an ease of doing business charter, which commits government to the smallest amount of time in terms of registration, turnaround time, enforcing a contract, turnaround time, payment of contracts, turnaround time. These are things that we're committing. So we are running Kaduna State as efficiently as we run our own businesses if we had them.
So how long does it take to register a business and move ahead?
At the beginning, when we started, it was taking about 3 weeks for you to register a business. Now you can register a business within 24 hours in Kaduna State. And in fact, what we're doing today is launching a website where you can do 95% of the transaction for registering your business on the website. And then you take off and just do the paperwork at the ministry. So it takes about 24 hours or less than that.
You know, you're the Commissioner for Budget and Planning, and, you know, a lot of planning will involve knowing the population. You put the population of Kaduna at 8.5 million. Now, people will ask, first of all, how did you come about that figure? That's one. On the other hand, you know, last year you had a budget of about, 172 billion, of which 50 billion was for capital expenditure. This year you've increased to closer to 300, 270, 200 and how much? 14 billion. Okay, so it's closer to 214 billion. Now, of the investments that were made last year, what fraction is it that you're looking, what fraction is it that has come into this year's budget? And how, confident, what are you looking at, in terms of projection for the following year?
Well, I think very early in the life of the government, we realized that there was no way we could plan without understanding better the situation on the ground. We'd heard a lot of statistics around Kaduna. It's 10 million, no, it's 5 million, no, it's 6 million. The last census that was done countrywide was 2006. So it's impossible for you to plan with 2006 data. And we understand that the rate of growth of the population is different in different parts of the country. So, for example, the 3.18% that's been announced by Population Commission is not the same in every state of the country. So the first thing we did was we reached out to the United Nations Population Fund and the Population Commission, and we sat down and we did what was called a population dynamic survey. Now, out of that survey is where we did detailed projection based on fertility rates in Kaduna State and death rates, and we arrived at the 8.5 million as of today. Now, we have this projection all the way up to 2050. Because what we want to be able to do is to provide the infrastructure, is to provide the healthcare services, not for today, but for the people that are coming on in the future. One of the things that we're doing, for example, today is launching the first infrastructure master plan for Kaduna State. It is going to cover 22 years from 2018 to 2050. Now, it's important because the planning horizon for infrastructure is long. If you're going to build a railway, for example, it's 5 years. If you're going to build any huge infrastructure, you're talking about 5 to 10 years. So we want to be able to leave to whichever government is coming something solid that they too can key in and invest.
Pardon me if I could jump in there, because we've seen several reports about white elephant projects, unfinished projects. Are you assuming that when you have this 22-year projection, whoever comes in at that point will follow through from where you started?
Well, we're not assuming that. We are putting our best foot forward during the time that we have. And then we're trusting that the people of Kaduna State will ensure that whoever they vote in after this government is somebody that would key into this. It's not somebody that would throw these things away. We're not saying we're handing the next government a straight jacket, but what we're saying is that they have something to look at, which if we had, we would have just keyed in, improved it, and then gone ahead. So what we're doing is provide that foundation for subsequent governments to be able to have something to key into and invest for the long term. And this comes to the larger budget that we have. We are doing an expansionary budget because we just left a recession. We're doing an expansionary budget to open up Kaduna State in terms of growth in the various critical sectors of capital infrastructure. We've gone away from the era of spending money on government to spending money on the people of Kaduna State. And the only way you can do that is to expand capital infrastructure. So we are going into deficit financing. We're working with the World Bank on an infrastructure loan later this year that would expand the economy of the state and make it able to be able to repay these things and grow the economy at the same time.
All right, then Mohammed Sani Abdullahi is the Commissioner for Budget and Planning. Thank you for talking to us today on the program.
Thank you so much, sir.
And we will be back in a moment. Don't go away.